Hey, you know what I want to do today? You know what I want to steal. I want to do some theft. I want to do some freebooting. I want to siphon off money and clout and views from other YouTubers and just like steal their shit and post it on my channel. And pretend like I did anything to deserve the attention from their videos. So yeah, like because like I was trying to do it differently. I was trying to sort of add substantive, interesting things to the best of my ability while reacting to stuff I saw on screen. But then my whole channel got taken down because apparently that's the wrong way to do it. So instead, I am going to do what all the popular reaction channels do, and I'm just going to put someone else's video on screen while I sit here and very occasionally say haha or oh that's crazy, or maybe I'll just fuck off and go to the bathroom while the video plays. Who gives a shit? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I'm done venting now. Hi, Nickyboi, my friend and colleague, recently did a fan rework for Cassiopeia, and much like I got screwed by YouTube's automated moderation system, so did he, because his video, because there is a cleavage in it sometimes, occasionally, got audience, like, age restricted after being up without a problem for 20 hours. And that killed the video, basically. Like, that getting age restricted, it kills your reach, it kills basically all of your chances of getting any ad revenue whatsoever, which was a bit of a blow for him because he put like literally thousands of dollars into the damn thing. So I have asked his permission, and he's given me permission to react to his video. I'm not going to monetize it because that feels a little grody for me, but I would like to ask that if you're watching this reaction video alongside me, and like whether or not you finish it, or whether or not you even think Nicky's video is that good, if you're watching this one, go find Nicky's video. There's going to be a link to it in the description. Go find Nicky's video, put it on in your browser, put it on a second screen, put it on your phone, like do whatever, and turn the audio down if you don't want to watch it, and watch it all the way through. Give it some watch time, then give it a like, then leave a comment on it, because like getting age restricted, having to re-edit it, and then re-uploading the video, that kills you in the algorithm. Like, that absolutely fucking kills you, and that was a really expensive video to make. So if we could just like, I know it's not much, but if we can give him just like a little bump in like the algorithm, oh, people are engaging with the video kind of thing, to help it push it a little bit, that would be good, because boy, he got screwed. He got screwed real bad. Like, I do feel like I have bought him enough Twitch subs that I'm probably not. I'm not stealing too much value from him by reacting to the video. But if we could just boost his statistics just a little bit, that would be good. Now, this is not my first time watching the video, unfortunately. Because I did do a reaction to my first time watching the video blind, and it was a great reaction. It was, I may say that it might have been my magnum opus. Like, it was a reaction of unparalleled quality and creativity. It was an astonishing work of art. If there were Oscars for reactions, I would have gotten all of the Oscars in all of the categories. It was a reaction that, if people were to watch it more broadly on the internet, not only do I think it would end war, I think it might actually have solved climate change. But then by the time I was done recording this transcendental magnum opus, this work of art that would have defined a generation, it turned out I had accidentally been recording the whole time with my microphone off. So I had to trash that, and I was just like, okay, well, we'll just do it again. And I'm sure that the second time around, I will be every bit as erudite, every bit as clever, and I will find ways to end all political conflict on Earth, just as easily. No problem whatsoever. So, let's take a look at what Nickyboi came up with for Cassiopeia. Spoiler alert, it's actually pretty good.
Reworks in League of Legends have become about as common as modern Marvel movies not being a complete waste of time. In a world where every new champion is released with incredibly polished animations, high detailed textures, and an expansive repertoire of voice lines,
why does that armored guy smell like dragon?
it only calls to attention just how deserted half the roster has become, and unfortunately with the current roadmap, it's a situation that's unlikely to ever change. Riot is never gonna boost production on visual updates compared to just making new champions, because they are much more expensive to make, risk alienating their original player base, and never see as much immediate financial gain.
There is no profit.
Because, as we all know,
Okay, so one thing I want to point out immediately, and this is something that I quite like about the way Nickyboi does videos. He is really fucking good at the joke per minute stat. So like, cause Nickyboi, like he has an editing style where like he puts a lot of jokes in there, like just joke after joke after joke, like little meme references, little things, little stuff that pops up, little like jump scares and shit like that. He pops a lot of those into his videos and into his scripts. And like, the risk you run when you do that is that it might make the video seem insincere, right? It may make it seem like some meme shit. Like a lot of people who do it seem to do it primarily to cover up for the fact that they don't have anything substantive to say, right? Like they don't actually have any point or any like really compelling thing they want to do or express. They're just kind of creating content for the content mill, right? And like just slapping a fuck ton of jokes in there sort of implies that they have a personality without ever actually adding anything. And that's the risk of doing that, is that you can seem kind of insincere. You can seem like you're just kind of a shitposting meme lord with like no interiority. And Nicky's actually turned me around, because I was very resistant to that kind of editing for a long time. I was very resistant to that kind of video for a long time, because I thought, yeah, no, that's just, it's insincere, it's empty, it's like it's shitty, right? I thought those videos were shitty. Nickyboi kind of turned me around on that, because he's really good at using those jokes and edits as like both as a tool for the rhythm of the video, like the cadence of what he's saying and what he's doing, but also as a way to create breathing room in his scripts for the audience to sort of like it's part of how you construct the flow of a video script, right? Like it's something that I try to pay a lot of attention to in the way that I make videos, is that I pay a lot of attention to what's the flow of my words, like what's my delivery, how am I giving all these things, like how much information am I delivering per paragraph, right? Like how much of it is empty fluff, how much of it is disclaimers, how much of it is like padding, and how much of it is actually hard information, and how well do I pace the hard information so that it doesn't become overwhelming to an audience member or like alienate. And that's a difficult fucking thing to balance, right? And what Nickyboi is really good at is using the jokes, using the cutaways, using the memes, using the shitposting to create breathing room in his script for the audience to kind of go, hey, this is fucking me, and then like they have a moment to absorb what's been said, and then like he uses it as punctuation essentially, which I think like visually is really, really quite clever. I think that's something he's really good at in a way that a lot of YouTubers aren't. So I just want to call that out, because it's one of the things I really like about the way that he edits.
Visually updating champions for the modern era has never boosted their popularity in the long term, certainly never providing them with new opportunities to be using grandiose new ways and earn profit far beyond anything their pre-rework forms could have ever possibly imagined. That would be crazy. As players, we just have to kind of accept that the age of reworks is over. For the foreseeable future, we're getting only 1, maybe 2 full VGUs a year, while ASUs suffer a similar fate and become hard luck to only the most popular champions with an already ludicrous number of skins.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, that's sort of that's the reality that we have to face with League of Legends, and with Riot especially, is that Riot just, as a company, as a structure, does not give a fuck about maintenance, right? And what I mean by maintenance is like, not just like, they do balance patches because that's genuinely very important to their product, right? They release skins because that's how they generate their revenue. But the boring shit, maintenance, like just stuff that's like keeping stuff up to scratch, keeping things up to quality, Riot, the company, does not give a shit. Like doing visual updates, like sort of like maintaining and updating the character's lore and their story, it just, the company could not give less of a shit if it tried. It structurally speaking just does not care about that at all. And it's one of the very galling and frustrating things about Riot Games, because like the writers at Riot do give a shit. The artists at Riot do give a shit. I promise you that they're pitching a lot of ASUs and VGUs internally that just never get to go anywhere because the budget isn't there to do it, because Riot won't give them that budget. Riot, meanwhile, is happy to burn literally hundreds of millions of dollars on esports events, on their esports scene, because that shit is prestigious. That generates headlines, that positions League of Legends as a product as like the prime competitive game, one of the prime competitive games of like the video games industry and all that. Happy to burn hundreds of millions of dollars on that shit, even as the bubble is collapsing all around the esports industry right now. But spending like a fraction of those resources just keeping their fucking champion roster updated, hiring some writers and comic artists to tell stories about their champions, can't be bothered, too difficult, don't worry about it. And that's, yeah, it sucks. It's one of my long-standing criticisms of the company, is that its management has time and time again proven pathetically unable to actually, sorry about that, that's my creative cloud bothering me, pathetically unable to actually manage the roster of champions that they've created, which they are ostensibly selling as their fuck off Creative Cloud, as their flagship creative products. But like, the behavior of the company demonstrates that they don't actually give a shit about the narrative, the universe, the characters, any of that shit. They care about like whatever instantly brings in money or prestige. And yeah, ASUs and VGUs, like, I promise you, again, the artists and writers and designers and the people who actually work on champions at Riot, they would love to do more. Like, I promise you, they've been begging the company for more resources, for more allocation, for being allowed. They've been begging to be allowed to build up the institutional capacity to do these things, and they're not being allowed to do it because Riot doesn't see the point of burning money on that shit. And it's frustrating.
Have to accept that our beloved fossils will never see the joys of the modern era.
That edit is so fucking clean. Like, that Minecraft edit.
Number of skins. We have
like,
to
first of all,
accept
because he perfectly matches the animation, and then Minecraft bow, boom, adding the little effects over the top. Like, that's a fucking immaculate little edit. That's great.
Modern era and are being left to rot forever.
But what if you could change all that?
Alrighty then.
And so begins the most ambitious and frankly expensive video I've ever produced. Because I got to thinking one day, if Riot doesn't want to update these champions,
Fine. I'll do it myself.
By the way, I second this, because we know the Riot won't fucking do it, and can't be bothered to spend the money or the time or the resources, or the amount of effort it would take to build up the institutional capacity to actually manage their fucking roster. Write fan fiction. Do fan art. Do your own fan redesigns of these champions. Like, take them away from Riot. Like, yeah, they own the copyright, but fuck them, they belong to you, actually. And you should make your own versions of them, and tell your own stories about them, and fuck what's canon, because Riot can't be trusted to give a shit about it. So I guess it's up to us. I very much enjoy, I applaud this attitude towards corporate IP. Is like, if they can't be trusted to do it, then fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. Yes, good.
And so our story begins with probably the worst kept secret ever. I decided to take a task upon myself to redesign one of League's oldest, most forgotten and confusing champions.
Next time, baby.
Cassiopeia. But why Cassiopeia, you may ask?
That is Snake.
Certainly there are other champions more deserving of the VGU treatment, much older and in more desperate need of that oh-so-prestigious model glow-up.
Yeah,
and you
Corky
would
and
be
Blitz.
correct, sir. But art is a science. And just like any great work of art, it was born from a place of pure, spontaneous inspiration.
Yeah, art is not a science, Nikki. Don't invite the fucking STEM lords into our space. They don't belong here.
And cocaine. At the time of this video's release, it will have been approaching a near full year since I started Casual Champion Review, a remarkably low-effort series of videos going through each champion in alphabetical order, discussing their lore, character design, and thematic fantasy while demonstrating my challenger-level gameplay
Oh, really, Nikki? You have a video series where you go through all the champions in order, talking about their lore and their story and their character design? Wow, that's so original, Nikki. That's so original, Nikki. I can't think of anyone else who's done that before, but in 60 seconds. And on their Shorts channel, no one's ever done that before. No, how original. What a cool concept you came up with, you thieving little motherfucker. You played your... I am obviously doing a joke right now. I am doing a kidding. I literally... Nothing about my particular series of shorts about doing every champion in alphabetical order is particularly original or special, and it doesn't belong to me, and I'm making a joke here. But Nikki, you plagiarizing little piece of shit, I am coming for you!
expertise. Eventually, we arrived at Lady Cassiopeia, with the main topic of the video revolving around how she is a character caught between two entirely different ideas. She's described in lore as a manipulative schemer, a Black Rose operative who views others as nothing but pawns to further her own ends, a suave temptress well aware of her own beauty and using it to her advantage, only enforced by the plethora of voice lines referencing it so. Yet it is also stated that she was cursed and turned into a hideous abomination, one with a new form that utterly destroyed her previous life, leaving nothing but a slithering monster craving her lost humanity and fighting back her new beastly instincts. I don't know about you, but looking at this current character model and those two design ideas, yeah, I don't really get any of those from this God of War NPC.
Yeah, And that's one of Cassiopeia's old fundamental problems, is like, she was designed at a time in League of Legends where the game didn't really have a lore, as like, it didn't really have story as such. It had a very loose narrative concept that was sort of just used as a vague justification for throwing these Smash Brothers characters at each other's faces. And so Cassiopeia was just basically just designed, we need a snake Medusa Gorgon lady who can like do a stare that turns people into stone. That's what we want. And they're like, okay, fuck it, we'll just throw together a version of that, shit it out on the Rift. Well, I mean, it took effort. They didn't just shit it out. But like a version of that, put that out on the Rift. That's kind of all we're going to do there. And that sort of translated into the character design we see. And then after that, writers were like, okay, we have to try and tell a story about this. So, and then there was some retcons, and there was like, they tried a few different ways to make Cassiopeia sort of more personable, relevant, interesting. And it's all been a bit of a mess, and so now we're left with this character where it's like, oh, she was transformed into a hideous, horrible monster. Look at her. She's a 9 out of 10 at most. She's not even a complete, flawless smoke show. She has ugly teeth, right? Like, she's a titty babe. Like, it's one of the character's fundamental problems. And, actually, I had Cassiopeia on my list of potential champions for doing, like, one of my building a better videos, because I also think that there's a fundamental flaw there that it's interesting to explore, like, solutions to that problem, which, well, shit, now I'm sitting here thinking about it, like, should I, no, I have too much else on my plate that'll have to wait.
9 ideas, yeah, I don't really get any of those from this God of War NPC. It's pretty apparent the temptress part of her character is what took priority, though. A pretty looking face, curvy features with stylized and symmetrical garments. This design is clearly going for appeal, but I don't think it really commits to it. Going the Janna route of, oh, we gotta make the character sexy, I'd stick her in a bikini, it'll be fine. As for the monster side, I don't think in any conceivable universe this would convincingly pass for a snake monster who stuck their head a little too close to the pizza oven. The biggest issue with Cassiopeia as a character is that she's caught in the middle. Advertised as a horrible snake monster with a tragic backstory, but at the same time was designed at a point in gaming history where dressing a female character in clothes and anything less revealing than Slave Leia was considered a cardinal sin.
Yeah. Lord. Yeah, oh my god. That particular era of character design in video games is like, fuck me, man. Like, because like Mortal Kombat has a justification for it. Like, Mortal Kombat is this ultra schlocky, really like stupid B-movie, over the top, like gore fest, like nonsense, like really sort of playing to the cheap seats, right? That's Mortal Kombat's whole concept. Like that's what Mortal Kombat was for the longest time, was like this very cheap, lurid power fantasy thing. Like all about, and like in that context, character designs, like the way the women were designed in that series, like, yeah, they kind of made sense. Like, and the problem wasn't so much that there was sexy titty babes in that lurid, like low rent, like violent power fantasy thing. That's fine that there were titty babes. The problem was that that's all that there was. Like, if you're a woman in Mortal Kombat, well, big tits and a fat, like, and a tight ass, like, that's basically what you got, right? And that's always the problem, is like, it's not that it's bad that there are titty babes, it's not bad that there are hot sexualized female characters in a video game, it's bad that that's the default, right? It's bad that it's basically unheard of for something to step outside of those archetypes. I mean, when something steps outside of those archetypes, everyone goes, people start to have all these fucking opinions, and the shittiest men on the face of the earth start coming out and being like, oh, this is woke and propaganda agenda. Like, that's the problem, is that there isn't a balance, right? Like, where, yes, hot, sexy titty babes with the big tits and the revealing outfits and all that, but then also other fantasies, right? Other power fantasies, other concepts, other ideas are also in play on an equal footing with the sex fantasy, right? That's kind of where I would like to see things go. Not towards no more sexy titty babes, but sexy titty babes that are created with intent and with consideration, rather than just being, oh, well, that's the default that a female character looks like, so that's just what she's going to look like, because we don't want to think about the tools we have available to us.
What if we fixed that? What if, hypothetically, Cass did get reworked? Not just giving her a new design, but removing the confusion of her storyline by honing in on just one of those two core character traits. To me,
Man,
that
I should
sounded really
check out the
exciting,
Amazing
especially
Digital
because if I
Circus.
tried to do this, I'd have complete creative freedom. A Moo, Nocturne, or any other highly requested champions had already seen plenty of fantastical and popular fan-made redesigns over the years. Some of them so amazing.
Also,
it wound up
subjectively,
landing
is
these artists
Syra
jobs
rework
at Riot.
so
It would
good.
be near impossible to compete with that. I mean, I tried anyway because, you know, I'm stupid. But with Cass, as far as I could tell, it hadn't really been attempted yet. As an amateur artist, it was my time to shine.
Oh,
All on my
fuck
own,
you
I
with
could
the
create a
I forgot about
Cassio-
the Among Us. God damn it. Fuck you with the Among Us, Nikki. God damn you. Fuck, I forgot about that joke.
Pia embodying what she was supposed to be to her fullest extent, and so naturally, I turned her into full-on fan service. Wait! I haven't been possessed, okay? I made a monster version as well. In fact, it was the first version I drew. Here's my initial sketch of Monster Cassiopeia.
Yeah, so one thing I should clarify, actually, kind of up front. Well, up front, I say it's been 21 minutes, but up front, it's almost as long as the whole goddamn video itself, is that if you're coming here hoping for me to apply the same level of critical lens to, like, Nickyboi's design that I would apply to one of Riot's, like, official reworks or ASUs, you're going to be disappointed because I'm not going to do that. Because why would I do that? That's not really, I don't think it's a productive use of anyone's time. Because, like, Riot is a billion-dollar corporation that's asking for your money. And when they put out a product, you should look at that with the strictest critical lens you possibly can. Because if they're a billion-dollar corporation hiring some of the best workers, like the best and most creative workers from the entire games industry, putting out a product that they're calling AAA, top of the line, like high quality, the best thing ever seen, then they fucking have to justify it. Then they have to earn your dollars. But when some YouTuber is doing their best to engage creatively with a piece of work and, like, putting their own suggestions and ideas out there into the universe, there's no point, there's no reason, there's no benefit, there's no function to applying the same critical lens that you would to a billion-dollar product to that, right? Like, I think that would be I think that's a completely wrong way of looking at criticism and what its point and purpose and function is, to sort of apply the same lens that you would apply to a billion-dollar corporate product to a passion project by someone who's, like, working independently. That does not make sense to me, and that's not what I'm going to be doing today. Not that I'm not going to be critical, I will be. It's just not remotely to the same degree or the same level that I would be critical of Riot, because that's ass backwards, I think. So, having said all that, I don't think this specific design is a very good Monster Cassiopeia design, unfortunately. There's another one coming up that he shows off that I think, like, sort of gets a lot closer to what I would like, specifically because it's too much monster and it lacks, well, or rather, it's not enough. It's too animal and not enough monster. Like, I think this lacks a lot of the monstrousness that I would want to see from a human snake hybrid, right? I think this just leans too close to looking like a generic World of Warcraft mob, in the sense that it looks like it lacks personality. It lacks a sense of an underlying personality that's being expressed somehow through the monsterhood, which is, like, that's one of the cores of Cassiopeia, right? Is that she's transformed into a snake because she was a fucking snake, right? Like, because she was poisonous, she was venomous, she was, like, backstabbing, she was sneaky, right? Like, all these traits and like character personality things that we associate with snakes and serpents. Like, she's untrustworthy, she's deceitful, she's, like, evil, she's backstabbing. Like, that's why, like, there's this overlap between who Cassiopeia is as a person and the monster that she's been transformed into. And here, there's just not enough person there to really sort of draw that compare. It looks like a mindless beast. It doesn't look like something with a personality, right? That would be my criticism of this. Although still, like, this is a much better rendering of, like, Cassiopeia as horrifying. Like, that's the thing about the lore, right? The lore says that she was transformed into a horrifying monster, and then you get, like, a 9 out of 10 dime piece smoke show. Which, like, that's a fundamental irreconcilability, and this is a lot closer to what the lore describes actually happened to her. Like, so in that sense, that's a better design.
focused more on the idea that the curse burned away all her humanity. With almost no human features left, I thought it would make her horrible transformation more believable for someone said to have lost everything because of it. Admittedly though, it is a very first draft design. While it incorporated many kinds of snake attributes and nods to Naganeka, the snake ascended which likely inspired the stone construct and cursed cast in the first place. I mean, even in LOR, her darkened weapon card is tied to Noxus. I highly doubt that's a coincidence. I just don't think I succeeded in making her truly monstrous. I think it's my fascination with dinosaurs and reptiles that held me back. Didn't really make it truly monstrous, which funnily enough, a really awesome version of this exact concept surfaced.
Though, like, and he found it on Queens of League of all places. Like, God, that's a dark place to go to, Nikki. But that one is a real fuck. Like, that's in terms of like Cassiopeia as monster, like Cassiopeia as like a horrifying half snake, half human, sort of the Fly style monstrosity. This one's absolutely this by morphogenesis, apparently. Like, this fucking rules. This is very, very cool.
Just a little bit after I posted my version, and it's just so fantastically creepy. A wonderful blend of snake and human attributes to create something truly terrifying.
I saw this.
While I had created a basic monster cast, I drew monsters all the time. I've been doing it since I was a little kid. Even if I didn't accomplish my exact goal on my first draft, drawing a monster Cassiopeia was very easy for me. What would be less easy was taking the other route, disregarding the tragic side of her story and leaning more into her character she is presented as not just in design, but in personality. A champion proud to display their striking good looks and using them as leverage over others is the central core of their fantasy. Unapologetic fan service on purpose. Oh hey, that's the name of the video. Considering my current standing in life and reputation on this platform, it would prove to be a challenging experience. By now, most of you are well aware I'm not overly fond of the quote-unquote sexy champions, but that's not entirely true. Silas, Kaisa, Yone. These are champions I've talked about a lot on this channel. Ones that were
I don't feel as negatively about Yone as Nikki does, but it's very funny.
And with eye candy at the forefront of their character design, even though it completely clashes with who they're supposed to be.
Yeah, okay, this fucking comic page. It still drives me up the wall. Like, when Riot released Kaisa, they released her with this story about, like, she's been bonded to an alien symbiote from the void, and now she's become the monster that everyone fears, and everyone, immediately upon seeing her are revolted by her horrifying appearance. And then, same fucking comic, this last panel, the last page of the fucking thing is like, now I'm the monster in those stories. Maybe someday I'll accept what I've become. Next to her perfectly sculpted ass, right? Next to this puppy dog, pleasant little face with the perfect makeup and not a single scar in sight, and like normal human teeth, who looks pretty as fuck, this being like, I'm so horrible. I'm so ugly. How could anyone ever trust me? Like, fuck off, Riot. Like, fuck off with it. She's a 10 out of 10 fucking supermodel wearing a body condom that sticks so tight to her curves that, like, fucking... And it's like, ugh, I'm horrible. I'm like, fucking read a Marvel comic. Like, read one Venom comic. Like, or if you're gonna fucking do Witchblade, then at least do Witchblade. Like, do cool, badass, sexy bounty hunter, motherfucker. Don't do this fucking weepy, like, I'm so scary because I look like a monster. No one will love me. Don't do that shit. Like, if you just wanted to have the hot, sexy symbiote babe, then fucking write a character who suits that character design, then. Jesus Christ, because it drives me insane. The fucking, I'm the monster, no one will ever love me. The fuck, they're right next to the fucking ass. Like, the ass, which is, like, conspicuously highlighted. It's like, oh my fucking God. It's a crime against character design. And the very worst part of them all is that Kaisa is actually a really good character. Like, when she's allowed to be a character, when we actually explore her interiority, especially through the relationship with Talia, there's a good character in there. Like, she has a great dynamic with Talia, like all this hard-bitten, traumatized survival angst up against someone who, like, still has hope in their soul, and like Kaisa wanting desperately to believe in it, but also being afraid to. It's a great dynamic. It's a great friendship dynamic. It's a great romantic dynamic if you want to go there. She's actually a good character, an interesting character. And they saddled her with a character design like that. Like, oh my fucking God. But this is not another fucking rant about Kaiser video, although I could probably just do like one of those a month for the rest of my YouTube career. Oh my fucking god. Fucking Kaiser.
As characters. Silas has been a prisoner since childhood, chained up and sustained on nothing but the rats crawling throughout his cell. What would that kind of character look like? Obviously, the clothing and physique of a male stripper. Body
Yeah, so like Silas is like, I'm sort of more forgiving of Silas in the sense that like, yeah, he's prison jacked. Like, okay, that makes kind of sense that Silas would like spend a lot of his time in prison, like just in the way that plenty of people do in real life, just getting jacked, right? It's just, the idea being that he's prison jacked, that's fine. Like, that's a good idea. The trouble is he's not prison jacked. Like, he doesn't look prison jacked. He looks, I have access to all the protein I could ever possibly want jacked. He looks bodybuilder jacked. He looks gym bro jacked. And those are two different things. Like, when someone who's going slightly insane during long-term imprisonment, like sort of exercises out their desperation just by like doing constant physical activity, that doesn't create that immaculately sculpted, perfect, like with the pectorals and the abs. That's not the physique that kind of lifestyle creates. It creates a very different, much more wiry kind of muscularity that isn't so pumped up and like full-throated and doesn't have that like that same like swollenness to it that like sort of. And like that's where my criticism of Silas is not so much that he's jacked, but that he's jacked in a way that just doesn't reflect the kind of exercise that he would be doing, or indeed the kind of lifestyle, the kind of resources that he would have had access to in order to pursue like the level of fitness that he was aspiring to, right? That's more where my criticism is.
clothing and physique of a male stripper. Body types, just like any other aspect of character design, is a tool.
Yes.
This is all to say, there is a place for the hourglass figure and biceps on biceps body types.
Yep.
In League, champions like Evelyn are a pinnacle example. It makes sense to give her a curvaceous form since her whole character is about luring in her prey through sexual charm. On the other hand, making a
I've tried so many times. To make that exact point. I think I've put it in almost exactly the same words that Nikki is putting it here, to say there's a place for hot, sexy babes and sexuality and sexualization. There's a place for all of these things. It's a tool. It can be used to tell good, interesting stories when it's used with intent, when it's used carefully, when it's not slapped onto a fucking hard-bitten trauma survivor who's like lived her entire life in a hell dimension fighting like space demons or whatever, called Kaisa in Shurima. But like, when it's not slapped onto a character like Kaisa for no fucking reason except that that's the default and that's the only way we're capable of imagining a female character sometimes, which is like bullshit. But when it's used with intent, when it's used with clarity of purpose, like for example on Evelyn, like for example on, I would argue, depending on how you look at it, Misfortune, like when it's used on Elise, like that's where these things make sense. That's where they serve a narrative and like a design purpose. That's where they're good. But when it's just used as a default for no fucking good reason, like it is on Cassiopeia, like it is on Kaisa, like it is, I think, on Aurelia for that fucking matter, and so many of the other League of Legends female characters, that's when it's just a waste of potential. It's a waste of a good opportunity to do more interesting storytelling. So like, yeah, and I've tried to make that point a million times, and still, no matter how many times I try to explain, no matter how clear I try to be in my words, you still get those fucking shitheads whose only response that they're capable of to someone suggesting that something should be anything other than eye candy is like, what are you, gay? Like, what are you, soy boy feminine? Like that shit. It's endless. These people cannot be persuaded. They cannot, like, they do not listen to facts because they are all stuck in their fucking feelings. And their feelings are that, like, well, female characters should only exist to look pretty and like make my dick hard, right? Or even like it also fucking comes from like women and from queer men, who are like, no, slay queen, like who are so fucking obsessed with their girly pop slay queen, Yaz, she's so pretty kind of fucking beauty culture bullshit, that they also fall into that, like from another direction, but they fall into that same trap of like this thing of like, well, why would anyone want to look at anything that isn't beautiful? For a million reasons. Like, there's so much more to art than beauty. There's so much more to aesthetics than just pleasure. And it's so frustrating that these people just cannot be persuaded by any argument, no matter how slowly and patiently you fucking spell it out. They're always going to be there just bitching away from behind their unexamined biases, and I'm so tired of it. I am so fucking tired of it. I hope Nikki doesn't get that too badly, but let's be real. They're going to be in the comments. Don't read the comments.
Character sexy doesn't necessarily mean they have to be sexualized. Samira, despite being a bounty hunter, wears makeup, jewelry, and dresses less than practically, but it's because she's a show-off.
Okay, one small correction here. So Nikki says just because a character is sexy doesn't mean to have to be sexualized, and then he points to Samira, and no, Samira is sexualized. I think we should be clear about that. Samira is actually very sexualized as a character design. But the point that he's making, and the point that I completely agree with, is that sexualization doesn't have to be about objectification. It doesn't have to be about being a sex object. It doesn't have to be about being like a aesthetically pleasing pinup. It can also be a power fantasy. And like Samira specifically came out of like inspiration from spectacle fighters like Devil May Cry, like Bayonetta. And Bayonetta is a great point of comparison also, because like Bayonetta is a hyper-sexualized character. Like, God, good lord, does the game like tease us with her nudity and with her body and with her sexuality. But, and this is like this is a point of critical discourse a lot around the Bayonetta franchise, but like, she isn't ever in her games, at least I don't think so, maybe with the exception of the third game, but that's a whole other discussion. She's never made into a sex object. She's never made into a thing which exists for the passive consumption of others. The way that her sexuality and her sexualization is presented is always as explicitly, at least I think so, as a power fantasy. Right? Like this, it's a power fantasy that's about being the hottest motherfucker in the room. The hottest, most powerful motherfucker in the room that everyone can stare at, everyone can gawp and glare and gape, and they can like sit there with their little shitty mouths open, and you are just like the most gorgeous, amazing, astonishing thing that has ever been present there, and you know it, and you own it, and you claim that power, right? Like that's the power of Bayonetta's fundamental power fantasy. And Samira is doing something similar. Like, she definitely is sexualized, right? The way that she's put together. But all of that is in service of, yeah, fucking look at me. Look at how fucking cool I am. Look at how good I look. Look at how perfect my outfit is. Look at how great I look when I'm swinging around kicking everyone's ass. Like, it's a power fantasy, right? And this is something that let's just grind another axe here. A lot of people are sort of willing to look at any sexualized character and just go, well, it's a power fantasy. Anytime a character is sexualized, it's a power fantasy. It's a power fantasy. And no, it's not. Like, the semiotics and the specifics of what the dividing line between what's a power fantasy and what's objectification, it's not a hard line. It's a matter of interpretation, and it's a matter of like some subtle semiotic shifts of how shit is presented. It's not a hard line. It's not something you can scientifically prove to be one thing or the other, but some things are definitely more objectified than others, right? And I would say, again, like, for example, Misfortune is a character where I will argue both points, both sides of that. Because the way Misfortune is presented, especially in her splash art, like, God, especially in her splash art, is sex object. Like, that is not a fucking power fantasy. The way that it's presented is, here's a very hot, sexy lady who's, like, staring at you flirtatiously with her tits basically spilling out of her shirt, like her giant tits and the red hair and the lipstick and all of that. That to me is objectification. That is about presenting Misfortune and her body and her sexuality as something to be consumed, right? Like a thing that exists for the visual pleasure of the viewer. And that's basically it, right? Like, this is not a power fantasy. This is not a fantasy about being empowered by sex or sexuality. This is entirely not even a fantasy for anyone who wants to play Misfortune. This is just a hot piece of ass that you can stare at, right? Like, this is just an object for your visual pleasure. But Misfortune as a character, like when we step outside of just what she looks like in her current splash art, and in her model in League of Legends, when you think about Misfortune in Ruined King, for example, when you think about Misfortune in Legends of Runeterra, she's still sexualized in those games. Like, there's still plenty of cleavage out there. She's still hot. She's still, like, plenty gorgeous, all of that. But that presentation of the character, the specifics of how that character is presented, that's a power fantasy. That's where it's the fantasy of being gorgeous, beautiful, using your looks to get what you want, like to manipulate people. that's where that interpretation of the character lives. And that's not a hard line. Like, that's not a, we can definitely draw a clear line between where it's one thing and where it's the other. But Misfortune is a great example of that. Anyway, I think I went off on a bit too much of a tangent there. We are 40 minutes into my reaction, and we're 7 minutes into Nikki's video. Let's try and speed this along.
Knows she's gonna do her job well and is gonna look great doing it. All that being said, how does this logic apply to my redesign of Cassiopeia? Well, again, I'm an amateur artist, an ace demon, and a better rendition will pop up later in the video to truly explain my idea, but TLDR, I want to lean further into the temptress side of her character, one that proudly and even vainly displays her dashing good looks for all to see. But going this direction does clash with something, her current lore. So to make this work story-wise, we had to rewrite it a little bit. Most of it's still the same though. She's still a Noxian noble residing in the colonized Shuriman city of Uzeris. She's still the lesser of the Dukuto siblings, being raised primarily by her mother. She still got indoctrinated into the Black Rose at a very young age, trained to be a manipulative schemer and use other people to further her own goals. She still raided several Shuriman tombs with Sivir and ultimately attempted to raid the Tomb of the Forgotten and obtain the power of the Ascended, literally backstabbing Sivir and releasing Xerath and Renekton by accident.
I will be free.
But then, at this moment in time, after her transformation,
Like I said,
is when we
he's
diverge
good at those
quite
jokes.
drastically. 'Cause
Also,
I got to thinking,
just want to recognize that, like, when Nikki does a background asset of some silly kind for some dumb bullshit, like some background meme or whatever that he's inserting,
is when we diverge quite drastically.
that's effort, man. Like, he goes a couple of extra miles in order to, like, really drive that shit home.
Because I got
Same thing here with, like, the Pondering Orb and then, like, the Wizard Beer commercial playing in the thing. Like, it's shit posting, but he puts a lot of effort into it, and I really appreciate it.
How many times have we seen in fiction an evil villain journeying to acquire some magical or godly power, only to be stopped by the hero or discover the power is far beyond their control, resulting in their deformation, if not flat-out demise? What I propose is a somewhat contemporary idea, because sometimes bad people aren't punished for doing bad things. What if the villain of the story lied and schemed and murdered all the way to get this incredible power and succeeded? The bad guy wins. Is not an entirely new idea, but it's one that I
Yeah, look, no, I mean, fucking Thanos, man, Infinity War sucks so bad. Like, the Infinity War, Thanos as a villain is such a piece, like, oh god. He sucks so bad, the filmmakers sucked so bad at telling the story about him and what he had going on, and what the fuck the deal was. He didn't win, but he also didn't lose, and it was like the filmmakers did not have a clear fucking idea of how stupid and dumb his plan was, and how much it wouldn't have worked even if he had won. Like, this is not, we're not reacting to Thanos right now. Fuck it, leave it alone.
I have to break your neck.
Who's to say the power of Naganeka wasn't what she was after in the first place? That by it being held within Xerath's eternal prison, he had absorbed much of it, leaving a fragment for Cassiopeia to take for herself, becoming not quite to the same level as some of the most powerful beings on Runeterra, but one that would certainly have Noxus and its Shuriman territories under her thumb. This is a Cassiopeia that was only amplified by her curse, using her newfound powers to spread her influence, making her one of the new top dogs of the Black Rose Order. I like to imagine this is a Cassiopeia who fully accepted her new form. In fact, she loves it. Because let's be honest, the idea that Noxians would be scared of a half-snake person is laughable. Noxus doesn't care who you are, where you come from, or even what species you are. If you are strong enough, you are welcome in Noxus. And Cass is certainly strong. While she had influence before, now it's only been magnified.
Okay, also, by the way, Nikki, where the fuck do you find these clips? Like, listen... Like, did you just have that ready to go? Like, oh, I have a script where I'm going to say magnified. I just have a folder where we have this sequence of this single shot from the first Toy Story movie where Sid is holding a magnifying glass up. And did you just have that ready to go? Like, how the fuck did you remember where to go and find that? How did you know? What is your library for all of these fucking clips? Where are you getting them? It's maddening sometimes how good he is at finding clips to do these little jokes with.
dignified, a manipulative schemer, vain and greedy with the utmost confidence in her position to rule over other people to the benefit of herself. And yes, she still shares similar interests with the Black Rose and isn't looking to be the new head lord of Noxus or anything, but as the easily youngest of the main 4 Black Rose champions we have, she isn't interested in the long term. While LeBlanc sees wealth as a distraction, it is a symbol of power to Cass. While Vlad hides in secrecy, Cass relishes in her popularity even outside of the Order. While Elise is loyal to her god, Cass is loyal only to herself. Cause to me, how would a young—
Yes, good. That is, and that's, I will say, like, in term, like, that needed to be established. Like if Cassiopeia is like this scheming manipulator who sort of pulls the strings and controls people, how is she any different from LeBlanc? Well, because LeBlanc is like, well, she doesn't care about wealth. LeBlanc doesn't care about power. What she cares about ultimately, like LeBlanc's actual ultimate goal is to fucking defeat Mordekaiser when he inevitably comes back, right? Like LeBlanc has this high-minded sort of conceptual goal in mind for all of her conspiracy making and all that shit. It's like, it's all about building her power so that when Mordekaiser comes back, not if, when, she will be ready for him and have some way to respond to him and prevent him from, well, killing her primarily, but also destroying the world. Right, so that's, LeBlanc has like that thing. And then Elise is like a cultist who prays to a particular god that empowers her, like, so that, like, and like, so, yes, good that we established the difference, that, like, she's not like Vlad, she's not like Elise, she's not like LeBlanc, she's inside the same sort of archetypal wheelhouse, but she's a different expression of it, and that's good that that gets, like, established clearly.
Young, impulsive,
oh, right, the fucking Trump
politician born into a wealthy, high-status
gosh, Nikki, you can't put that on screen, Jesus.
Any other way than selfishly.
This is why you got age-restricted, Nikki. That's why.
Selfish. She's well aware of her beauty and the fact that people want her, but she uses that aspect of her appearance solely as leverage, swaying her victims to her side through sheer temptation.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Yeah, if it wasn't clear enough already, a lot of inspiration for this new Cassiopeia's personality is lifted directly from her Spirit Blossom skin.
Which, by the way, is the best Cassiopeia skin. By far, easily. It's also the best version of Cassiopeia we've ever seen. So, like, that's a good place to lift from.
I mean, hey, pretty much all the other Wave 1 Spirit Blossom skins are direct reflections of the Runeterran selves. Why not add this one to the list? So, I had an idea for what I wanted this new Cassiopeia to be, but there's one big problem.
I call it bold and brash. More like belongs in the trash!
Sorry, I must have missed that one.
My artistic ability is limited, to say the least.
No. None of that down talk. This is one thing, like, I do want to point out, like, Nicky is sort of a little performatively, I think, sort of talking down his own artistic skill. And number one, like, he's not on the level of a Riot artist, right? Like, we're not gonna dispute that. On a technical level, absolutely he's not. But he's not a bad artist. I don't care how many times, like you can talk yourself down all you want, buddy, but you are not a bad artist. You are, in fact, a pretty damn good artist. I have known many artists who were worse than you, who made a living doing what they do. So, like, no, none of that down talk. This is actually good cartoony art. Is it world class? No, but, like, most people's artwork isn't. It is still good, and I quite like it.
Is limited.
Like, especially the Soraka piece here. Like, it just, like, the thing with the stars and the hair and, like, sort of doing like a what's it called, Aurora Borealis sort of like glow effect, like it's a night sky. Like, yes, the stars could maybe be rendered in a slightly more interesting way, and like there's glow effects that could be applied, but that's a cool visual idea. It adds a lot of decorativism to her design. Like, this is a good rendition of Soraka as a character. Like, drawing any kind of centaur character is difficult, and I quite like the Lilia redesign, right? I could definitely frame criticisms of your artwork, buddy, but you are a good artist. This is good art, right? And like what he's gonna go ahead to say is like, I hired some artists who are better than me in order to produce like the version of this character design that'll look the best, right? And that's completely, yes, I do the same thing when I do the Building a Better video. I contact artists who are more capable than me. But first of all, because I don't want to spend the time it takes to create artwork for those videos, because it takes a lot of fucking time. I want to edit the video and write the script and like do all the other work that's necessary. But second of all, also because I know that my art, especially since I've become a full-time YouTuber, I just haven't practiced, so my skills have atrophied. My art is good. I'm a good artist. I made a living being an artist for a while. Not a great living. Like, I was fucking broke as shit, and like, it was so stressful that it like fucking almost killed me. But I did, and I am a decent artist. I can make good artwork. I know this for a fact, but also I know that my artwork doesn't play on YouTube, right? To a general YouTube audience, my artwork is nothing particularly impressive because, like, I'm at a decent but fairly average level as an artist, right? And Nikki is very much in the same kind of spot. And that doesn't really play on YouTube. That doesn't really play to a general audience, like, whose expectations of rendering quality, whose expectations of, like, technical quality of a work are much, much higher. And I would say sometimes unreasonably higher, just because there are so many absolutely astonishingly amazing artists out there who put all of their work online for free all the time. So, like, it shifts the bar for what we think of as good artwork, like, so fucking high up. And when you're doing a YouTube video like this is something I do with my Building a Better videos, you kind of need someone whose artwork is on a higher level to bring the, like, to bring the bling and to give a casual audience who are used to a much higher level of quality what they expect so that they'll take the thing seriously, right? But that doesn't mean, Nikki, that you're a bad artist, and it certainly doesn't mean that I'm a bad artist either. We are, both of us, and I will say this with my whole chest, we are both of us quite good artists, actually. Better than the vast majority of humanity. Easily, by a fucking long mile. But maybe not, like, we're not Riot-level artists, right? Like, that's the thing. And what Nicky has done here is he's gotten in touch with someone who I think is a Riot level artist.
But to say the least, I couldn't fully bring it to life like I had hoped. Thankfully, this is the part of the video where it gets extra spicy, and probably the part you've been waiting for this whole time. Because what if I commissioned an actual artist to bring this version of Cassiopeia to life?
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
I know, not the biggest reveal for anyone who's seen a single community or Twitter post from me in the last 4 months, but here it is. Thanks to Eri Violet and their immaculate ability to recreate League of Legends.
I have worked with them also on some artwork before for some of my videos. They're fucking amazing. Like, they are goddamn good artists. Like, they've been in the League community forever. They are in many ways Riot level. Like, an astonishingly good artist. So, like, if you want a commission of anything, like, their prices are frankly too cheap. Go commission them.
Legends' concept art style, and in putting their own design ideas, this version of Cassiopeia has finally been fully realized. So you might have some questions. What changed from my first rendition of this design, and what changed from the original Cassiopeia? Because I realized I never actually explained that.
I'm stupid.
Well, it's pretty obvious to tell right from the start. This version of Cass is committing to the bit base Cass only dipped her toes into. Tail into. Turning her metal plating into loose-fitting cloth and long-flowing streamers. I don't actually know what these things are called. Please enlighten me.
I'm stupid.
This was done to give her outfit a bit more of an elegant appearance.
Yeah, and that's like, again, I'm not especially interested in like being super critical here, but I would say, like, and this is sort of the thing, what they're designing for here, right? Like the rework that Nikki is designing here is one that's supposed to work on Summoner's Rift, right? Like, because that's what they're, spoiler alert for the later part of the video, they're actually gonna do the full work of porting this into like a custom skin that you can use in League of Legends for a little while, until Vanguard comes in and kills everything. And like, so they're designing to that purpose, which is that it needs to work on Summoner's Rift, and also like it needs to be moderately functional as a custom skin. I would go further. Like, the idea that they have here is good. That, like, you have Cassiopeia with like loose fitting clothes that sort of like slither over her body, that emphasize flexibility. I would like do a full evening gown, like really sort of lean into like a glamorous, like big, extravagant, like evening gown with like a long train that sort of follows the movements of her tail, kind of thing. Like, that to me is like, if I was doing something like this, I'd say just push that further. And that's, yeah, might as well do that now. That's generally my criticism. Like, if I have a critique of the design that Nicky has put together, is that in a lot of the places he has a really fucking good idea, and I would say push it harder. Like, go even further with it. Like, go even more extreme with it. And I'll call those out as we get to them.
Soft clothing allowing her body the flexibility it needs to slither around whichever way she pleases. She still has the hourglass body type, much like before, arguably even...
Like, for example, the hourglass body type. Like, when you have this transition from like the human to the snake body, I think you could give her a bigger ass. Like, I think in terms of like, if we really want to lean into the fan service, if we really want to lean into the sexualization, right? Push her proportions a little bit more. Like give her even more of that thick mommy figure thing going on. Also because like that can help like age the character up. It can make them seem a little bit older, and that can also imbue them with more authority and power, right? Like if they seem like someone who's like less in their 30s and more in like their like 40s perhaps, that can give them more authority, that can give them more of a sense of experience and like power, which especially with the way that this version of Cassiopeia is being conceptualized is like, that might actually be good. Like if she feels even more, like she leans even more into the MILF mommy dommy kind of thing. So I would have pushed that even further and like give it her like a thicker ass and like a thicker tail in general to like really sort of push that angle.
More so, but that's intentional this time, along with the shape of her clothing made to accentuate those proportions. This version of Cass, much like Samira, is well aware of how attractive she is and uses it to her full advantage. She was always a cunning manipulator who used her beauty to sway the weak-willed even before her transformation, but now she has the power to elevate that tenfold. I like to think this version of Cass steers more in the direction of paralysis and hypnosis.
Fucking Monster
if she's
Hunter
unable to
nerd.
dissuade her pawns
Also,
through her
that
natural...
sprite, is that just, did you just put a fucking, I think he just put a pixelation filter over the artwork of Cassiopeia, because like if you had a custom sprite created, you would show that in the video, right, Nikki? I would like to see that.
Charm, she could induce her victims into a trance, unable to resist her demands, giving her immense power over others, albeit not in a raw physical strength kind.
Also, like hypnosis is classically associated with snakes and serpents, so like I would fully support like her Gorgon stare being turned into like a charming stare, where like anyone who sees her is charmed and forced to walk towards her for a few seconds, as a piece of crowd control rather than just being like frozen in place.
Of way. Next up, her face. It's no secret League women haven't been known to have the most distinguishing facial structure.
Yeah, it's a fucking same face in League of Legends is a fucking plague. It's a fucking plague. It's terrible. Especially in the skins, it gets really, really, really bad. And it's frustrating because, like, it's not even, like, you don't even have to stray away from beauty ideals in order to make different faces. Like, go and look on like photographs of like the most beautiful female celebrities or whatever. You will see a bunch of different facial structures, a bunch of different jaw shapes, a bunch of different like eye shapes, a bunch of different nose shapes, a bunch of different like facial constructions, like the ratio of like the distance between the eyes to the nose to the lips. Like all of that is there. It's there in the beauty ideal, inside of like this standard typical normal beauty ideal. You have a huge variety of different kinds of faces, and yet games like League of Legends just default to the same shit over and over and over and over again. Like, and it's not, I'm not even asking you to go outside of the beauty ideal. I'm just asking you to take advantage of the full range of the beauty ideal. It's frustrating. God, that fucking recent Irelia porcelain skin, like, Jesus fucking Christ.
And my cartoonish art style doesn't exactly alleviate that problem.
What are you? Some kind of silly cartoon?
So with Air Eye Violet's help, this version of Cass aimed to give her a more unique appearance.
Yeah, I like the face is very triangular, right? Like you can see, like that's the hairstyle helps to do that. You have this like triangular shape. You have this triangular shape that's been created by like the scales. These things lead down into like this very sharp, like I like that. I think maybe the nose could have been a little sharper, like to sort of really accentuate the pointiness, or maybe you could, yeah, yeah, noses are difficult because the beauty ideal is very restrictive about what's a beautiful nose and not. So that one's maybe a little bit difficult to work with, but like, I like the triangular shape of this. I like that because like that also emphasizes like sharpness, and it emphasizes her lethality, her danger, and it works with the serpentine themes. Like that's really good.
Much sharper jawline and nose, in some ways a more exaggerated version of Katarina. Color scheme was important too. Even if she has lived in Shurima for most of her life, Cass is still a Noxian champion, and much like Samira, again, she should have design elements from both regions. Current Cass is pretty much entirely Shuriman, with her armor being comprised of nothing but greens and golds, and the only Noxian element at all is how she mentions it in a couple voice lines.
No, she doesn't.
Aim to fix that.
He knows she doesn't mention it in a couple of voice lines, but yeah. So yeah, the Noxian elements here are Again, I would have gone a little harder. I would have gone a little further with the Noxian elements, because like Noxus is red and black, right? Like that's the Noxian colors. I would have put a little bit more black in her character design. Like I would have added a little bit more black detailing somewhere. Like he'll bling up the blah blah blah. He'll bring up the Black Rose spy later. And like I would have probably drawn some more of this sort of like those like highly elaborate veils and dress things. I would have probably drawn a little bit from that, added some black to the proceedings other than just the Noxus burgundy, the Noxus red. But again, like it's a good idea. I think maybe I would have pushed it a little bit harder, like a little bit further. Because the criticism is absolutely correct, is that she desperately needs some kind of Noxian element in her character design. We'll get to the crown for that a little bit later in the video.
The bright golds of Shurima while incorporating just a smidge of Noxian colors with the white and red fabrics. She still leans more heavily into Shurima since that's where she got her powers and where she lives most of the time, but she has that Noxian element to tie her back to.
Right, the Black Rose, right? Like the Black Rose spy from Legends of Runeterra. I would have like maybe brought in maybe the streamers, like maybe have a second streamer which was black sort of layered over top of it, or some kind of black motif on it, or like this decorativism, right? You see like the Black Rose running up that thing, like the rose motif that sort of repeats across the Black Rose spy's outfit. Like I would probably have brought something like that into it, like some more decorativism, some more embroidery, some more like something to also to make her outfit look more expensive. Because I do think parts of it are a little bit too simple and could use some shushing up, like just like be a little bit more out there, be a little bit more like sort of Met Gala, right? Like a little bit more extreme in the amount of decoration work that's clearly been done on them just to make it look more expensive.
To her homeland. Her headdress as well has been altered substantially, turning it into a full-on crown. Much like
the crown is a great idea.
Our version, it mimics aspects of the Noxian insignia. I like to think much like the braids of Freljordian demigods or shoulder pauldrons on Ionian blade masters, these elaborate head decorations would be a staple to the head honchos of the Black Rose. And without the headdress, her hair was finally freed, revealing a similar hairstyle to that of, this one. This is why I could never be an actual character designer, dude. I don't know the names of anything.
I'm stupid.
I mean, don't worry, Nikki. No one knows the names of anything. Like, everyone Googles these things. So that doesn't disqualify you, don't worry.
Now, I know what you're thinking. She could have been a redhead, considering both her sister and her father are. But as far as we know, her mother Serena's hair color is still a mystery. Since Katarina has closer ties to Marcus and Cass to Serena, would it not be thematically appropriate for each half of the family to share a similar hair color?
Yes, and like this is also like in terms of making her similar to Katarina. If you gave her red hair, she would just be like, she would be too similar to both Misfortune and Katarina. Like that color change, especially when combined with the rest of the color palette that she has, like no, it needs to be black hair. I am fully like, oh, dark brown. Like she could be a brunette, I think also, but like black hair, especially with like the sort of Black Widow, like lethal beauty archetype. I completely agree with Nikki on this.
There's also the little bits of green at the ends, and mainly this was done just because.
Right, but again, my criticism here is like I would probably do something more elaborate with the hair. Like one thing I keep thinking about is because one benefit of Cassiopeia's traditional headdress, like that sort of weirdly shaped fan thing that she's got on her head, it sort of mimics the shape of like a cobra's mantle, right? Like it sort of mimics that fleshy wing shape that often surrounds the head of like dangerous venomous snakes. And I'm missing that a little bit from this version of the character design. And the thing I can't stop thinking is like, what if she had like a really big, complicated, like overly complicated, like really sort of wild out there Queen Amidala hairstyle that mimics the shape of like a king cobra's mantle behind her, rather than just like the plain hair just like cascading down like a waterfall. What if there was like some artifice, some kind of like 15 servants worked for 12 hours to perfect this thing and put it on her, right? Like this ostentatious display of wealth that then incorporates some of the imagery of like the false eyes that certain serpents have on their mantle, like something like that. Again, I feel like like I said, the basic hairstyle, look, the bob that she's got going on there with the bangs, that is a really good idea because it aids in the triangularity of her face. But then the long hair that falls down behind, something more elaborate could be done there to sort of, again, emphasize the thing of, like, she's the queen of, or a queen of the Noxian provinces in Shurima, right? Like, to really sort of build out her power and the expensiveness of everything she wears and does.
It visually looks cool, but it could be argued as symbology for the venom running throughout her body. I don't know, there's been worse explanations for design choices. For body color scheme, you may notice she's a lot more tan than you might remember. And while yes, she isn't technically Shuriman, she has lived there for the majority of her life. It would be strange if her skin color wasn't a little bit darker after all that time roasting in the desert. For scale...
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a thing. Like, I think you could... Because, like, this is... Like I said, Cassiopeia has been on my rework list for a while. Like, as an idea, like, I have some vaguely sketched out thoughts about, like, what I would do with her, and, like, I could kind of see it the other way, specifically because I would draw a lot more, in my conception, I would have drawn a lot more from, like, Spirit Blossom Cassiopeia, and I would have made her a white snake, like, literally, like, with the same, like, scale color, like, those milky whites, and my idea for her specifically, I had a bit more of a monster idea in mind, is that she would be wearing, like, veils, like expensive, complicated, like, fancy veils over her face that sort of hide how monstrous and weird that she looked, but also that she would be demonstratively pale, because she's always hiding her body in, like, the way that she looks under layers of, like, expensive, extravagant, gorgeous clothing. And so that she would have very, very pale skin that sort of just melts into her scales, right? Like, so that you can't tell where the snake begins and the woman ends, right? Which is, like, what Nick and Irai have done here is, like, they've made these very clear delineated boundaries between, like, where are the green scales and where's the flesh of the body, right? Like, that's very clearly shown. And that's just another approach to it. My thought would be, like, to really sort of lean into the ambiguity of it's, like, is... what parts of her are human skin, what parts of her are scales? The only way to find out is to literally touch her, right? Like, to dwell on the fear in that ambiguity, like the weirdness, the uncanniness of that, and it's like, make her in Shurima, a country where she would be surrounded by people who all have tans. She would be demonstratively, like, weirdly, like, really, like, to the point where you kind of go, what the fuck is that? Pale, right? Pale in a deeply unnatural way for the environment that she lives in, specifically sort of to indicate that she's an outsider, she's a conqueror, she's an invader, that she is not of her people, right? Like, that was sort of one of the ideas that I was operating with. And, like, but for the version of Cassiopeia they're doing here, no, like, yeah, tan. She could be more tan. In fact, like, I think you could probably have gone harder on that, because she does need to be that in order to sort of demonstrate that she belongs in Shurima and that she likes showing off. My version of her was one that doesn't like showing off because she's ashamed of, like, the monstrous weirdness of her body. But one that likes showing off, oh, she needs a tan. She needs a fucking deep one, too.
Patterning was changed as well. There's some on her face, arms, and running down her back, while the color scheme of the snake half's underside is the same as her human skin. This was mainly an attempt to merge the two halves of her together into one cohesive whole, instead of the original where it looks like a snake tail was duct taped to a pharaoh cosmos.
Which, yeah, and that's one criticism I have of the Naked design. I think they could have done a slightly better design with, like, the underbelly of the snake body, of merging that into her human skin, like, going up from the boundary, because, like, the function on base Cassiopeia of, like, this whole metal arrangement thing that's around her waist, it's entirely to hide the transition. Like, that's what that is there to do. It's to create a boundary, and then how do we transition from snake scales to human body? Don't worry about it. Like, it just happens somewhere under there. It happens. Don't worry about what it looks like. Like, we don't know. We don't want to render it, so we just install this boundary so we can screw this character together like an action figure, right? And I would level a little bit of the same criticism here, is that I would have liked to see the scale pattern of, like, the underbelly continue up on the stomach just a little bit, like just a little bit, and then sort of fade out, rather than like doing the same thing the base model is, which we have this clear boundary where it's like, oh, we don't have to worry about how these things fade into each other. That would be my small criticism there, is like yes, that's a really good idea to have the same skin tone for both halves, but then also go further, merge it more, right? With the caveat that, like, if you engage in a more fluid merging of human and animal, then they also become more monstrous and, like, less, like, that can run the risk of diminishing the whole, like, she's a 10 out of 10 dime, like, smoke show dime piece who just looks the most gorgeous of anyone in the room. If there's a little bit of weirdness there, maybe that detracts from that a little bit. That's a thing to navigate. So, like, yeah, but that would be my criticism. Again, like, I welcome the Cassiopeia, and I encourage you to go further.
This was mainly an attempt to merge the two halves of her together into one cohesive whole, instead of the original where it looks like a snake tail was duct taped to a pharaoh cosplayer. And lastly, a bit of decoration. Some bracers, necklace, earrings, makeup.
Again, this is like, I really like the train of this thing, like the jewels and the bracelets down the hair, because again, like I think a lot more could be done with the hair to sort of make her look extravagant. And again, my criticism here is go further, like go harder on that, like give her even fucking more, like just really, because especially when we're drawing from like old Egyptian iconography, I saw an exhibition of like Egyptian jewelry at where was it, Glyptotekel? Yeah, the Glyptotekel in Copenhagen had like an exhibition on loan of ancient Egyptian jewelry, like a lot of artifacts that had been found around like some of the royal palaces, and like the sheer level of self-decoration that like ancient Egyptians engaged in is like, holy shit, like you could go way harder on that, like with way more just stuff on the character to really display and show, like it, and it should be demonstrably impractical, right? Like the part of the point of like that kind of opulence is that it isn't practical, like that this is wealth that is so extreme that it gets in the fucking way. I think they could have gone a lot harder on giving her even more jewelry, like even more decoration, like even more, like being maximalist in the decoration style. Again, that would complicate turning it into a skin that would actually work as a custom skin in-game. That might not work so goddamn well on Summoner's Rift, unfortunately, and that's a completely fair reason not to do it. But that would be my criticisms, like, go harder, like, even more, like, more decoration, more, like, embroidery, more everything, like, more visible labor put into putting her outfit together. Like, to really ramp up the ostentatiousness.
In her Sunday best. She has no need for bulky armor or battle gear. She's not a soldier. She knows she's beautiful. Everyone else knows she's beautiful. She uses that to her full advantage by putting it on full display for everyone to admire. All this together, Cassiopeia is inherently designed to be fan service. Really with a purpose. Oh, hey, that's the title of the video again. And does it work? Well, I mean, I'm obviously speaking from a biased standpoint here, but I thought we did a pretty decent job. This is all to say I'm totally fine if you don't like the design, and I'm not upset if any people don't like it. While I have my opinions on what I think makes a good character design, the truth is stuff like this is ultimately subjective. This redesign is not objectively better than the original, it's just what I think is better. We good? We good. That
disclaimer, I feel for you, buddy. I like that fucking disclaimer is like, one of the things that's very, very frustrating about making videos on YouTube is that there are so many people who never learned that critical thinking skill, right? Like that fundamental critical thinking skill that everyone should bring with them to all of the media that they consume about art, is that it is like subjectivity is table stakes, right? Subjectivity should be assumed at every stake. Like every time you go to sit down and watch a video of mine or Nickyboi's or whatever, like unless we specifically say this is objective, like I'm making a claim to objectivity here, you should just assume this is a person's opinion and they're presenting it as an opinion. They're not trying to force a set of facts on you. And your job as a viewer, as our interlocutor, is to know that, to internalize that, and to give us that basic benefit of the doubt, like that basic show of good faith, which is to say, hey, I assume that when this person is presenting their opinions, when they're presenting like their ideas and stuff like that, that they and I both share a common understanding that all of this is subjective, because it is so exhausting to have to, like, when you don't specify it out painfully, like this is only in the opinion, it's only like this is like one particular reading of the thing, it's not the definitive take, it's not the only objective take, it's not like I'm saying you're stupid if you disagree with me, I'm just presenting my ideas with my arguments because this is stuff I genuinely believe, but don't be offended and don't get mad if you don't agree with me or whatever. Like, it's so exhausting to have to do that disclaimer every single fucking time, because otherwise, like 6,000 people in the comments with no critical thinking skills who didn't learn that this should be your base assumption will go, oh, you just forcing your opinions and your agenda on the, like they get so offended and so mad and so upset, and so some of them get fucking snide and condescending about I guess someone never learned that their opinion doesn't equal fact. I fuck off. That I've ranted about this on this channel before. It's so frustrating. And I have done that disclaimer that Nicky just did myself, like probably word for word, frankly, too many fucking times to count, and I'm getting so tired of it because I wish the audience would just internalize that, yes, of course it's my opinion. Like, what the fuck else do you think? What? Unless I am saying out loud specifically, this is an objective claim to objectivity. Of course it's my opinion. Jesus. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. And the worst part is, even if you do the disclaimer, even if you do it, even if you do sit down and go, like, this is only my opinion, it's only one particular, you still get people in the comments reacting to you as though you said, this is objectively the truth and no other things can possibly be true. And anyone who thinks anything different from me is a stupid fucking, like, you still get people who say that. You still get people who react to your video as though you said those things. And it's like, it is so fucking exhausting. It really is. Like, in the long term, like, any one of those comments is fine, right? Like, 1 comment, 2 comment, 5 comments, like that, nothing. But when you've read hundreds of them, and then maybe like up to thousands of them over the course of your YouTube career, over years and years and years, it just, God, it starts to grind away at your fucking soul, man. Don't read the comments.
So happy with what Air I Violet had produced, and proud of my own ace brain for being able to concoct something I wouldn't normally touch within a 10-foot radius. It's clear many of you fellas liked it a lot too. In the lead up to this video, from the sketches to the YouTube short to the additional
Nikki
artwork,
gets so
the
much
sheer
fucking
amount of
fan art.
support
I'm
and
genuinely
fan art has
jealous.
been overwhelming, to say the least. Seriously,
He deserves
it's just
it.
been so,
I should be clear,
so
but
much fan
he
art.
gets
I
so much fucking
absolutely
good
love
fan
it,
art.
fellas. Thank you so much.
It's
As
so
for
cool.
downsides, I'm pretty sure plenty of people would have rathered I'd gone for the more monstrous version of Cass, and fair enough. It's something I'd like to tackle again in the future. And of course, making a character this blatantly fan servicey has
Yeah.
it has its own risks.
Deal with it, buddy.
All in all,
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. That's just gonna happen. I'm sorry. You can't control that. There's no amount of horny bat bonk you're gonna do that's gonna stop that from happening. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to live with that.
I think we made a pretty decent redesign of everyone's not so favorite Snake Lady. One that a lot of people seem to enjoy quite a lot. And what more could I ask for than that?
What more indeed?
Well,
Your job's not done yet, Nicholas. It's clear plenty of people already like your redesign. So much so you even gaslit some people into forgetting the original even exists. So what if, and hear me out, we went even further beyond?
Alrighty then.
it's not exactly a new idea to redesign
Oh, hey,
some
that's
of
me
League's
again.
oldest champions. Plenty of other content creators have done it numerous times in the past. But I got to thinking, would it be possible to not just redesign the champion, but modify them in almost every single avenue to the point it feels like they might pass for an official ASU? What if, huh? What if we did that? Yeah, we actually did it. We got an icon in the same style as the newly made portrait icons from last year, an emote replicating the only one base Cass has. For a while, we had a paint over splash until eventually we got an entirely brand new one that better suits this version of Cass's personality. Her smug energy, it mocks me so. And of course, a fully functional custom skin, free to use for all who use custom skins. At least, you know, until Vanguard comes in and wipes the entire concept from existence. But hey, you know what? It was fun while it lasted. And speaking of, if you've seen any of my more recent streams at twitch.tv/Nickyboi, you probably would have seen not only are there special Cass redesign emotes, not only will you have seen that we've played with this custom skin several times, but that we also managed to get all the way to Mastery 7 on Cassiopeia only using the custom skin. In pretty much every single aspect, this version of Cass has basically become a full ASU.
Yeah, and I actually accidentally managed to pause at exactly the right frame. As long as we don't count overhauling the model rig, adding new animations, or updating literally any of the skins. Yeah, that's the thing, is like, I think maybe calling it a new ASU is overstating the point a little bit, because one of the things that does hold this back as a custom skin, in the way that all custom skins are held back, is that Cassiopeia's model is not built for it. Cassiopeia's model is not built for rendering this version of the character. You can see it especially in the streamers that clip very awkwardly through her body, in the way that like the really have cloth physics on her character model. The way that she still has the big giant snake teeth sort of incorporated into the model, and like the tongue that flicks out, like there's some awkwardness there. None of which is the fault of the character design, but all of which is the fault of her ancient fucking ass model. Which needs to be rebuilt from the ground up with like new animation bones, like new capabilities, like all of that, in order to deliver on something that could more plausibly carry off a character design like this. And like, if Cassiopeia had a legendary skin of any kind, maybe you could use that rig to like do a more, but like, just, I want to stress to you, the work it would take, and I don't even know if this is possible, of like fully doing an ASU of Cassiopeia, of like actually getting a new model, a new animation rig, like all of the things that would be needed to put into the game in order to make that work. I don't even know if that's possible. So no, I think it's overstating it to call it a full ASU. I don't think it quite gets to that level, but it does get, and I mean this very sincerely, as close as anyone outside of Riot could ever possibly get to making that happen. Like, this is literally as close as it can possibly go. And it is astonishingly impressive. Like, I really do want to emphasize that the sheer amount of effort, the sheer scale of work that has gone into making this work, putting it together, is like, it's so fucking much. Like, it's so much work. Like, that's why it also cost him literally fucking thousands of dollars to put together, because like, even to do something like this, right, like just a custom skin for one character in a video game like this, it's not trivial. It just isn't. Like, and no part of this kind of development, of like adding stuff like this to a video game, is ever going to be trivial. It just isn't. I want to recognize very, very strongly the sheer amount of labor, effort, and time that went into making this happen, because it's astonishingly impressive. Like, it is genuinely really, really, really fucking cool. And I want to congratulate Nikki and the whole team on making it happen, because that shit can't have been easy.
But there is one thing missing, isn't there? Usually one of the biggest draws of these visual updates isn't just the visual part, it's audio too. Fully fleshing out who the champion is personality-wise and giving proper interactions with more champions beyond just one. So what if I told you, fellas, I had just one last surprise in store for you all?
Beauty is the greatest curse of all. Oh, it's nothing personal, dear. I dispose of tools.
He got a voice actor too, which, like, again, effort. The sheer amount of effort on display here. And he actually, like, well over a month ago, he actually messaged me on Discord and said, "Hey, do you want to help me write some of the voice lines for like my Cassiopeia issue? Like, I maybe like you could sort of add some perspective." Like, and I saw that message in my Discord inbox, like, oh shit, that's really cool. I definitely want to do that. I'm definitely going to remember to respond to that. But I was in the middle of something, so I closed down Discord, and then ADHD just sandblasted that information right out of my fucking skull. Just a smooth brain. It just slid off, and I completely fucking forgot about it for weeks. And then I never actually got to help him write the voice lines. Hi, Nikki. Sorry about that. I feel bad about that. So I don't have any criticism whatsoever to say about any of these voice lines. I think it's cool. Like, I think there's some bangers in there actually. Let me see. There, like,
I am not so restrained.
Your god's power binds you, Spider. I'm not so restrained. Like binding, restraint, like that. Those are good places to go with Cassiopeia, because like that sort of points to some of her core power fantasies, like binding, restraint. Also, like the voice actress, I wanna actually
Metaphor.
Oh, Grand General. I wish I had a compliment to offer in return. I'm not the only snake here, Jericho.
So the voice actress is doing a really good job. She's emphasizing her sibilance in her speech. Like, not to the point of, like, being cartoonish about it, but if you listen to the voice delivery that she's doing of all the character lines, she is emphasizing her sibilants, like those sounds. She's emphasizing them without being, like, cartoonish, but she's emphasizing them to the point that's like, oh, that's a good acting choice, like, for the character. Like, just not to overdo it, but you just bring it in as a little thing that sort of hovers in the voice delivery.
Annie, sweetie. You're late for class again.
Class again, right?
I'm starting to think LeBlanc finds amusement in her own failure.
So, like, yeah, they're great. Like, there's a few bangers in here, like, for example,
in my beauty. Oh, you precious thing. Let me help you.
The mommy-dommy vibe?
Gaze into my eyes. Let those bad feelings just melt away. Do you like what you see? Would you like to see it up close?
Good. Like, that shit is good. Like, emphasizing that in her thing of, like, that she's not just, like proclaiming the superiority of her power, but that she's like, oh, come here, let me help you. Do you like what you see? Like, that shit, rather than, like, being sort of demonstrative and standoffish and like, my power is greater than yours. It's like this thing of, like, come hither, baby. Let your guard down. Trust me. Let mommy take care of you. And then dagger in the back, right? Like, that, as a piece of characterization for her, that's good. And there's a bunch of good voice lines for her also. And
Friends,
also,
I'll be sure to personally inform your chief assassin of your swift demise. You have wasted your gift. A snake, am I? Perhaps you like to see just how snake-like I can be.
Aladdin references? Really? You fuck that Jafar line from Aladdin, Nikki? I mean, on the other hand, like, I'm sitting here being like, that is so corny. That's a recent movie. Except, no, it's not. It's 30 years old. And these fucking Zoomers have no fucking idea about it. So, you know what? Look, no, what? Fair enough. Fair enough. Like, that's a retro reference. That's like, God, that's the equivalent of, in the 90s, that would have been equivalent to referencing a movie from the 60s. Fuck.
Friends are unnecessary, but you will make a fine pawn.
That's also a really good line.
Everyone knows me. Oh,
And there you have it. Altogether, we kind of made an ASU all on our own. Absolute kudos to the artists who helped bring this to life. They are all absolutely amazing. We're a joy to work with, and I trust you fellas will show them the appreciation they deserve. So now, at the end of the road, I thank you fellas for joining me on this journey. I hope you enjoyed our Cassiopeia ASU, and hey, if you did, consider subscribing since we're so close to the 200,000 mark. Or if you really want to see more videos like these, please do consider supporting me on Patreon. Paying all these artists was pricey to say the least. There is no world where this video ever makes back even a quarter of what it cost to produce, but it was a passion project. And a few dollars from you fellas every month goes a long way to helping fund these kinds of projects. Oh my god, can I stop shilling now? I
no.
Really should take a sponsor.
Keep going.
But that's the end.
But also, yeah, like, definitely in the future, take a sponsorship on these videos, Nikki, because, like, you need something to offset the expenses. You're never gonna make it back in ad revenue.
Think of our fan-made Cassiopeia ASU. Was it convincing enough? Do you fellas like the design? Perhaps you have some constructive criticism for what we could have done differently. Be sure to let me know down in the comments below, and hell, while you're at it, let me know what kinds of champions you would like to see me make a video similar to this about next. I'm particularly fond of my Cho'Gath and Soraka redesign, so perhaps if my wallet doesn't die from cardiac arrest, we tackle them or any other highly requested.
That there, the character who's posing in the background. Huh. Okay.
Champions in the future. Till next time though, thank you so much for watching, being with me on this journey through this massive project, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.
So yeah, like, I just wanted to let him end the video and do his shilling, because he deserves to, after the effort and the amount of money that he plugged into this shit. So that's my reaction to it. Like, generally, like I said, my main criticism is that I think a lot of it could have been pushed even further. Like, a lot of it could have gone even harder on doing the things that it was doing. And I think it would have seen benefits from that. But generally, like, just a really solid base for like a rework of the character that's non-destructive. And like this is like, yeah, I will say it also feels like the kind of ASU that Riot would probably ultimately end up giving her, because it's one that doesn't radically reframe the character. It zones in, it homes in on like one part of like one particular aspect of who she is, and then it goes like, let's zoom in on that, let's focus on making that coherent and good, and then like we expand out from there. And like I think that is the kind of approach that Riot would probably ultimately take to it. And it's like, again, the astonishing amount of effort on display to put something like this together. Like, I've done my own Building a Better videos, right? And like, they were like, I didn't do fucking custom skins for in-game or get voice acting done or rewrite the voice lines for the character. And those were already like, it's fucking so much fucking work to put together. So I do want to reemphasize that this is an impressive fucking project to make for anyone. And that, yeah, I'm kind of proud of him, actually. Like, that's, fuck yeah, dude. You did something really fucking cool here. And I would like, again, to encourage all of you to go watch the video. Like, if you've already watched it with me and you're like, I don't want to watch it again, just put it on low volume, just let it play, give it the watch time, come back and interact with it once, like, pause it, then unpause it once or twice so YouTube knows you're watching, and leave a like, leave a comment, help it regain some traction in the algorithm, because, like, YouTube screwed him out of the reach that this video was supposed to have. Please do that. I would like you to do that. There's a link to it down in the description. Go watch it. And go subscribe to Nickyboi also if you're not already subscribed. He makes good videos that are fun to watch. And that's all I have to say about that. Bye.